Level 1. The tenant. You are 26 years old. You live in a one-bedroom apartment, and every first of the month, you write a check to a landlord you've never met for an amount that could be a mortgage payment somewhere else, in some other version of your life. You do the math on a napkin one night after a few beers with your roommate. Your rent is $1,650. Over 5 years, that's nearly $100,000 handed to a stranger who does nothing but own the building you sleep in. The number sits in your stomach like a stone. You start reading. Not casually, obsessively. You fall into forums and podcasts about cash flow and cap rates and something called the BRRRR method. That sounds like a joke, but isn't. You learn the vocabulary before you understand the math behind it. Down payment, debt service, vacancy rate, property manager. You say these words out loud in your apartment when no one's listening, testing how they feel in your mouth. You have $14,000 saved, most of it from a bonus you didn't spend on anything. It's not enough for a house in your city. It's barely enough for a down payment on something 2 hours away, in a small town you've never set foot in, where the median home price is a fraction of what it is where you live. You spend 3 weekends driving out there anyway. You walk through a duplex with peeling paint and a roof that needs work in the next 5 years, and the agent tells you the previous owner rented both units for $850 each. You do the math, standing in the driveway. Mortgage would be around $1,100. 2 tenants would bring in $1,700. The gap is small, but it's positive, and positive feels like magic after years of writing checks into a void. Your parents think you're insane. Your father, who worked the same job for 30 years and never once considered owning property he didn't live in, tells you, real estate is for people who already have money. You don't argue with him. You just quietly close on the duplex 4 months later, hands shaking as you sign 40 pages of documents you only half understand, guided by a title agent who has clearly done this 1,000 times and treats it like Tuesday. You drive back to your apartment that night as a landlord for the first time in your life. You don't feel rich. You feel terrified. And underneath the terror, something that might be pride. Level 2, the landlord. The first tenant moves in within 3 weeks. You handle the lease yourself, printed from a template you found online, and you go over it twice as carefully as anyone has ever read anything, because you have no idea what you don't know. The first 6 months are quiet. Rent comes in, you pay the mortgage. The gap between the two, roughly $300 a month, feels like nothing and everything at once. Then the water heater dies in Unit B on a Sunday night. You drive 2 hours with a borrowed truck and a plumber you found through a 5-star review at midnight, because tenants without hot water don't care that you have a day job on Monday. You'll learn, standing in a stranger's basement at 11 p.m., holding a flashlight, that owning property is not passive income. It is a second job that occasionally pays you instead of the other way around. You buy a second property a year later, a small, single-family home 3 blocks from the duplex, using a chunk of the equity that's built up plus savings you scrape together by not eating out for a year. Your friends stop inviting you to things because you always say you're saving. You start to understand that this path requires a kind of delayed gratification that looks, from the outside, a lot like deprivation. A tenant in the single-family home stops paying rent in month 4. You're gentle about it at first, then firm. Then you learn the word eviction is not a single action, but a months-long legal process involving court dates and filing fees, and a judge who has heard every excuse 100 times before. It costs you $4,000 in lost rent and legal fees to remove someone who never should have been approved, and you realize screening tenants is not a formality. It is the single most important decision you'll make on any property, and you got it wrong once out of pure inexperience. Level 3. The operator. 3 years in, you have 4 properties and a spreadsheet that has become something close to a second brain. You track every expense down to the dollar. You know your property's numbers the way some people know sports statistics: vacancy history, average repair cost per unit, the name of every plumber and electrician you trust within a 30-mile radius. You hire a property manager for 2 of the units, the ones farthest from where you live, and handing over the keys to someone else feels like handing over a piece of your own judgment. You still check the software every day to see if rent has come in, a habit you can't quite break even after paying someone else to worry about it. You have your first real scare in year 3. A hailstorm tears through the small town where your first duplex sits, and the roof you knew needed work in 5 years needs it now, urgently, before the next rain gets into the walls. Insurance covers most of it after a claims process that takes 4 months and more phone calls than you can count. But the deductible and the gap between what insurance pays and what the roofer actually charges comes out of your own pocket, nearly $6,000 you hadn't budgeted for. You learn that reserves aren't optional. Every investor online said so, and you nodded along without truly believing it until the moment your bank account dropped by $6,000 in a single week. You start keeping 3 months of expenses in a separate account for each property, untouched no matter how tempting it is to reinvest it somewhere else. You buy your 5th property that year, a small multifamily building with 6 units, using a commercial loan for the first time instead of a residential mortgage. The underwriting process is longer and more invasive than anything you've done before. The lender wants years of tax returns and a business plan and proof that you actually understand what you're buying, not just that you have the down payment. You pass, you close, you now own, on paper, more doors than most people your age will ever set foot inside as owners rather than renters. Level 4, the scaler. 5 years in, you quit your day job. It is the single most terrifying financial decision you have ever made, more frightening than any individual property purchase. Because a bad month on one deal is recoverable, but a bad year with no salary underneath you is not. Your properties now generate enough net cash flow to replace your old paycheck. Barely, with almost no margin for error. You spend the first few months of full-time investing waking up at 5 a.m. out of habit, sitting in your kitchen with coffee and nowhere urgent to be, feeling a strange mix of freedom and dread. Freedom because no one can fire you. Dread because no one is paying you a guaranteed salary either. You start using other people's money for the first time, structuring a deal with 2 silent partners who provide capital in exchange for a percentage of ownership and cash flow. It is the first time you are legally responsible for someone else's return, not just your own risk tolerance. You draft the operating agreement with a real estate attorney instead of a template this time, because the stakes of getting it wrong have changed completely. The deal works. You buy a 12-unit apartment building using their capital and your operational expertise, and for the first time, you understand that real estate investing at scale is not really about property anymore. It is about capital, trust, and structure. The building itself is almost secondary to the relationships that made buying it possible. You hire your first full-time employee, an operations manager who handles maintenance requests and tenant communication across your growing portfolio so you can focus on finding the next deal instead of fixing the last one. Handing over daily control is uncomfortable in a way that surprises you. You built every process yourself, and watching someone else run it, even competently, feels like watching a stranger drive a car you built with your own hands. Level 5, the syndicator. 8 years in, You raise your first real fund, pooling money from a dozen investors to buy a 40-unit apartment complex that would have been impossible to purchase alone. You spend months on investor presentations, financial projections, and legal paperwork that costs more in attorney fees than your first duplex did in total. The pressure is different now. A bad month on your own properties used to just hurt you. Now it means explaining to a retired school teacher why her distribution check is smaller than projected. A conversation that keeps you up at night in a way that losing your own money never quite did. The deal closes. The property needs significant renovation, new roofing, updated units, a complete overhaul of the leasing office, and you spend a year deep in construction management, learning contractor timelines and change orders, and the particular stress of a renovation budget that creeps upward every single month despite everyone's best intentions. You go over budget by 15%. You have an uncomfortable call with your investors explaining why. And you learn that transparency, delivered early and honestly, is worth more than any spreadsheet projection you could have shown them at the start. The property stabilizes 18 months later. Occupancy climbs from 74% to 96%. Rents increase. Cash flow finally matches what you projected, a year and a half later than you told anyone it would. Your investors are patient because you were honest the entire way through, and that single lesson, learned the hard way, becomes the foundation of every relationship you build afterward. Level 6, the developer. 12 years in, you stop buying only existing buildings and start building new ones. You purchase raw land for the first time, an empty lot in a growing suburb, and the process terrifies you in an entirely new way. There is no existing rent roll to analyze, no historical performance to study, only projections, permits, and a construction timeline that everyone tells you will run over. And it does, by nearly 6 months. You navigate zoning boards, environmental studies, and a city council meeting where a dozen neighbors show up to oppose your project, worried about traffic and parking and the character of their street. You sit through 3 hours of public comment, absorbing criticism from people who have never met you, learning that development is as much about politics and patience as it is about capital. The building finishes. 32 units, modern, well located, exactly the kind of housing the growing town actually needs. You stand in the empty lobby the week before leasing begins, and it feels different from every acquisition before it. You didn't buy someone else's vision this time. You build your own from an empty field, and the pride sits heavier and quieter than anything you felt, closing your very first duplex 12 years earlier. Level 7. The legacy. 15 years after that first duplex, you manage a portfolio worth tens of millions of dollars across residential and multifamily properties in 3 states. You employ a team of a dozen people, property managers, an accountant, a construction supervisor, and a small acquisitions team that finds deals before you even see them yourself. You still remember the exact terror of signing those first 40 pages of paperwork with shaking hands, and some mornings standing in the lobby of the very first duplex you still own, unrenovated on purpose, a kind of monument. You feel that same younger version of yourself standing beside you. Your father, the man who told you real estate was for people who already had money, calls you now for advice before he makes any financial decision of his own. He never apologizes for doubting you, and you never ask him to. Some acknowledgments don't need words, just the quiet fact of a phone call that wouldn't have happened 15 years ago. You think, sometimes, about the version of yourself who did math on a napkin after a few beers, terrified of a rent check disappearing into a stranger's pocket forever. You wish you could tell him it works out, but you know that's not really the truth he needs to hear. The truth is closer to this. It costs more than money. Every single level of it. And you would do it again anyway. Because the alternative, the version of your life where you kept writing checks into someone else's equity forever, was never really a life you could have lived with. Somewhere right now, someone is sitting in a rented apartment doing the same math on a different napkin, and they have no idea yet which version of this story they're about to live. They'll find out. They always do.